premiums have skyrocketed over and above the national average on the individual market for a 50-year-old male, almost 600% in some states. We're doing it state by state. It's varied across the board. But we have seen premiums 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the rate of inflation because of the flawed design. And that's what the reason people aren't screaming about it is the vast majority of people on those exchanges get enormous subsidies. And of course, with the enhanced subsidies, people above the 400% of the poverty line, they got subsidized too. That will go away. And so now those people are screaming, and we got, politicians, saying because the subsidies are going away, premiums are going to double for these people. Well, they're increasing. They're not doubling. They're going up about 30%, but the mask is being taken off.
Yeah.
Those subsidies are going to be no longer going to be available for people who make $120,000 a year and above. I mean, we've got millionaires getting subsidized by Obamacare with those enhanced subsidies. I mean, it's grotesque.
All right, guys, good Tuesday to you. The president is on day 3 of his Asia swing. Big news coming out of Japan. We'll break down all of his highlights. And later in the week, he will be in South Korea and then have that meeting with China's President Xi Jinping. Potential meeting at the DMZ with Kim Jong-un, although I don't know. I keep going back and forth on whether that meeting will happen. But and we are 7 days out of elections. So 4 big things, right? You got New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and then that Proposition 50 in California. We'll continue to break it all down throughout the week. Some updates on that front. As I mentioned, day 28 of the government shutdown. I think these SNAP benefits, they're the low interest. The low income assistance that a lot of people get. And I'm telling you, I've seen more people when I drive by food pantries than I've ever seen. I don't know, maybe ever, lining up. I think this is going to be a really interesting, and believe me, I'm not trying to not sound that concerned about this. It's a big deal for a lot of families. But I think the Democrats are going to really see the pain that they've been inflicting on these folks, the political pawns that they've used for this government shutdown, come into focus a lot quicker in the next few days. People calling out sick from critical jobs, air traffic controllers, et cetera, TSA agents. It's going to have an impact on travel and then these low-income people. But Ron Johnson has been leading the way strategically, as far as I'm concerned, trying to force Democrats to get smoked out about how ridiculous this is, asking them to vote against paying active duty service members and essential federal employees. And he's going to join us in just a second. And I will ask him about the strategy, what we're doing, and why did it take so long to do this? The idea that we haven't been smoking them out more is, it's a problem for me. And then I talked to you guys yesterday about Zoran Mondami's sort of, I think, big, stupid mistake at the end of the show yesterday. I talked about this issue where he's been talking about his aunt and how after 9/11 he was so concerned about her and how she was treated. He got panned a lot for that. I played the clips. I have an update for you that I think will blow your mind. And I'm not kidding when I say blow your mind. It's kind of insane what he did. And so I'll save that for you. Just trust me, after Ron Johnson, you're going to want to hear this. Tomorrow, John Solomon's going to be here. He doesn't disappoint, does he? No way. And then on Friday, Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire, he has been testifying in front of, I think it's the Senate this week. We'll get all from him. Thank you for everybody that's been going through the various platforms. It's always, I know sometimes people are like, I watch on YouTube, I watch on Rumble, I listen to the audio. It's super helpful in independent media to subscribe to everything for us, just to be honest with you. So thank you for those of you who go across platforms. Plus, it's a great backup. You never know where you are. Sometimes I literally will go for a walk. I want to hear the show. Or sometimes there's some other shows I listen to. I admit it. And having a backup so that if I'm in the car or if I'm working out or going for a walk, I'll put the audio version on. So when you go over and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, it helps us a lot. So thank you for doing that. Or if you're an audio listener and you listen to audio, come over to YouTube and do that. And by the way, you would always get to see the morning meeting. We do rants over the weekend. I digress. But I will tell you this before I bring in Ron Johnson. I've talked to you before about wellness journey and trying to get healthier. But I admit it, I am still a snacker at heart, which is why I love, and look at this. This is you can tell I crushed the bag. These are masa chips. I met the guys who founded Masa Chips at an RFK Maha event in January, February. And I was like, guys, I keep seeing displays for your chips. Keep hearing them. They had them with them, of course, because that's what they do. These things are amazing. Back in the day when I was growing up, like snack food used to get cooked in tallow. And then suddenly everybody found out it was cheaper to do ultra processed, seed oils and all this stuff that's just bad for you because of what they do. I mean, and seed oils are becoming a bigger part of our diet that's not good, according to a bunch of studies. So the cool thing about Masa chips is not only do they taste great, not only are they just amazing for like dipping and snacking on and all that kind of stuff, they only have 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed tallow. And you can taste it. Like, I don't feel bloated or after I have a few Masa chips. It's the healthiest thing that you can do if you're looking for a snack. They're crunchier, tastier, sturdier than other chips. I'm not kidding. If you're like a salsa or guac dipper, I do the salsa, not the guac, you'll love it. And you can have a handful of them, still feel light and energetic and not feel like you're bloated and sluggish, because I think that's pretty much the tallow that does this. So if you're interested in trying Masa chips, and I'm going to tell you this right now, my pro tip, get the variety pack. These are the original. They've got a blue chip, a lime, a habanero. There's a whole bunch. And I like every one of them I love. So if you give them a try, go to masachips.com/Sean, S-E-A-N. Use code Sean. You get 25% off. And again, if you know what you like, buy that. But I'm telling you, I think the variety pack is the way to go. That's how I started, because I knew that I wanted to try the different flavors and get a sense of what popped, because it is all natural. But go to masachips.com/Sean, use code Sean, S-E-A-N, for 25% off. All right, before I bring in Ron Johnson, I want to talk about another great guy, another great person, another great group. Those are the folks over at Concerned Women for America. You've seen Penny Nance, their CEO, on our show before. They are a leader in the culture wars. These are the folks that took on the trans issue before it was cool or popular. Penny Nance and Concerned Women for America for 45 years have been fighting the fight for conservative values. And they've got 7 key core issues that they fight on: family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, parental choice and education, fighting sexual exploitation, national sovereignty, and support for Israel. And they kill it on all of them. I'm not kidding. Like, when you talk to people in D.C. and ask who the most influential people are, especially folks on the right, they will always bring up Concerned Women for America. Everybody knows Penny Nance. She's at every big event behind the scenes making it happen. She's established chapters all over the world, all over the country, sorry. And so there's collegiate chapters. There's ones that moms and professionals have organized all throughout the country to make a difference where they are, and then bubble it up to D.C. I think if you want to do one thing to help the conservative cause, do me a favor, make a donation of $20 or more to Concerned Women for America, and you'll actually not only do great stuff to help them, but you'll get a brand new book written by Penny Nance, the CEO, called A Woman's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. This is a really great read. It's also a really great gift for that woman in your life, maybe someone who's graduating, have a birthday or Christmas coming up, or Hanukkah, whatever it is. So go to concernedwomen.org/Spicer, concernedwomen.org/Spicer for your copy of that book and to support the great work of Concerned Women for America, concernedwomen.org. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in the senator from Wisconsin trying to solve the government shutdown, Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Morning, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
All right, I'm going to ask maybe one of the dumbest questions that I've asked in the years since I've had this. Why did it take so long for your colleagues to take up the Ron Johnson approach to this?
I guess I'm not a very good salesman.
You are. You're a businessman. I mean, you're a successful businessman, so obviously you do. But I kept thinking, I'm not kidding when I say this. I was banging my head against it. It was literally like one of those scenes out of a movie where it's like, how are we ever going to solve this problem? Should we go through the entrance right there? And I'm like, Ron Johnson has laid this out. Pay the people who are working, our service members, and force the Democrats to the table. And I don't know what it was like behind the scenes. I mean, I'm being serious when I ask this. Why did that approach take that long?
Well, this is an alternate universe. I think you understand that. Well, one of the dynamics here is the Republicans did what was the most reasonable thing they could possibly do. The House, a week before the end of the fiscal year, passed a clean CR at President Biden's spending levels. Now, I mean, that's basically you come into what they didn't expect would be a negotiation with your absolute best, most reasonable offer. It's kind of like, no dealing car dealerships, right? I mean, this is our bottom line best price. Okay, there's no dealing. What they could have done is said, we're going to have a continuing resolution, but we're going to load it up with all of our policy preferences, and we're going to cut $1.5 trillion worth of spending to offset or set up a negotiating position with Democrats that said, we'll do a continuing resolution. All we're asking for is $1.5 trillion of new spending. So now you've got a position where you can negotiate, but Republicans did, again, the most logical, most reasonable thing. We don't want to shut down the government. We want the American people to understand that. So we're going to come with a clean continuing resolution, the same one that Democrats voted for basically 13 times during the Biden administration, at President Biden's spending levels that they voted for. What could be more reasonable? And so they pretty well stuck to that position. And fortunately, it's such a reasonable position, even the lamestream media can't really attack Republicans for being unreasonable and causing the shutdown. They recognize it. It really is Democrats that are doing it. It's also given us now the opportunity to point out the reason premiums are going up isn't because the temporary COVID enhanced subsidies are going away. It's because of the faulty design of Obamacare that's driving premiums, skyrocketing premiums since the inception of Obamacare.
All right, I want to take this piece by piece because I want to get to the ACA, to the Obamacare subsidies and how we deal with that, because I think that's a separate thing. But let's go back to this. We're at day 28. You're now offering an opportunity for Democrats to say, okay, you don't want to open the whole government up, but how about we just pay active duty service members and essential workers, air traffic controllers, border patrol. I mean, who else? I mean, there's a whole list. But people are being forced to work. They get paid. When you brought this up, I just want to take it piece by piece first. So you throw this out there. What does the Senate leadership say tactically? Are they like, give us a few more days, or let's start jamming them now?
Yeah, I mean, their response is, we've already offered a way to pay everybody, and it's called the House Clean CR, which is true. Okay. Yep. The first thing we voted on, which I think is the real solution long term, is the Eliminate Shutdown Act. Okay. That is what we should have passed. Every Republican should have voted for that. Every Democrat voted against it. Unfortunately, I couldn't really talk about it, couldn't introduce it before we were in a shutdown mode, or else it would appear that we are spoiling for a shutdown like we wanted one, and we didn't. Okay. So we were on recess the day before, the week before the actual shutdown. We come back, and it was scheduled as a comeback vote. And so I didn't have a chance to explain the strategy to my colleagues. In the meantime, the Republican chair of our Appropriations Committee, who doesn't like the Eliminate Shutdown Act because she wants to keep the pressure to force us to vote on appropriation bills. Okay. So she lobbied her appropriators to vote against the Eliminate Shutdown Act, and she sent out through her legislative director her explanation why she opposed it. And the main reason was because the Eliminate Shutdown Act, which, by the way, all it does is sets up automatic 14-day rolling appropriations for any department we haven't funded, giving the appropriators time to pass an appropriation bill. There's no bells and whistles on it. There's no pressure points. It just sets up automatic continuing appropriations at last year's levels. Nothing could be more common sense, right? But she claimed that would undercut the appropriations process. And so I've been pointing out the appropriations process she's claiming that would undercut. I've been here 15 years. We should have passed 180 appropriation bills prior to the start of the fiscal year's funding, right? 180. You know how many we've passed? 6. So this sacrosanct appropriation process she claimed the Eliminate Shutdown Act was going to undercut has a failure rate of 96.7%. The Eliminate Shutdown Act does not undercut that failed process. Okay, you have to recognize we have a failed budget. We have a failed appropriation process. Time to recognize that. As Chris Van Hollen said of the Shutdown Fairness Act, let's not punish federal workers for our dysfunction. Unfortunately, the appropriators happen, this on a uniparty basis, on a bipartisan basis. Apparently, they're happy to punish federal workers because they won't vote for the Eliminate Shutdown Act, and we would never have to have this conversation ever again. We can eliminate shutdowns for all time, but they've been opposed to this ever since I passed a similar bill, the Preventing Government Shutdown Act, as chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. That was a bipartisan bill, but that bill, sponsored by James Langford and Maggie Hassan, that has additional pressure points, which I think people legitimately argue would just put pressure to, again, spend more money than we can afford. So I stripped out those pressure points and just have a very clean, automatic, continuing appropriation. That is the solution. We might be able to draw to an inside straight and actually get that passed during this dysfunctional process. I have no idea how long this continues. But in the meantime, what Leader Thune hopefully will do is bring up the House CR again, then immediately move to the Shutdown Fairness Act, which pays people we are forcing to work. But I've agreed with Chris Van Hollen. I'll actually include furloughed workers in that as well, and see whether, put that on the floor and see whether Democrats will take yes for an answer.
Okay. See, I was about to ask you this. So when you put this down, because I was one of these people, I was chomping at the bit. I'm like, can we just take up Ron Johnson's bill sooner rather? I mean, so strategically, I thought you are literally putting them in a corner. Now they have to, it's not about the whole government. It's not about everything. It was just about active duty service members and essential workers, people who are being forced to go to work. I got to be honest with you. I thought you would get close to the threshold at that point, right? Meaning I thought 4 or 5 Democrats are definitely going to peel off. Were you surprised? I mean, so you got Fetterman and then Ossoff and Warnock, the 2 Georgia senators, but you name checked Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland. I got to believe that the Maryland senators and the Northern Virginia, the Virginia senators, my senators, actually should care more about federal workers because of the magnitude of them in those 2 states. I don't get it. How do they get away with optically not voting for that? Because that, to me, I mean, I heard some of the excuses, but I just don't understand how somebody like Van Hollen can go out and beat the drum about caring for workers and then be like, but I voted against you getting paid.
So again, the White House and our leadership did not want to do a rifle shot approach early on, okay? But I convinced them we don't want the Democrats to go on offense, to come up with their own bill, go on the floor, ask for unanimous consent to pass something that's going to pay some of these workers, then we have to object to it. So, I could have done mine as a unanimous consent request, but Leader Thune said, no, let's actually file this as a bill. Let's make them vote on it. But in that process, they knew I was going to offer that motion to proceed to the bill. We're going to actually vote on it. So they came to the floor first with Chris Van Hollen's true Shutdown Fairness Act. Okay, he stole my name. But what was interesting about it, there were just a couple of differences. His act is just temporary, just be for 2026. My act is permanent. I mean, my act would stop us from punishing federal workers for our dysfunction. Okay, so I would make it permanent. Federal workers want it to be permanent, trust me.
Sure.
And then the other thing, he added furloughed workers, which on the floor of the Senate said, listen, because the 2019 Government Fairness Act or Fair Treatment Act, we're going to pay them anyway. So I'll include that. That may be a heavy lift in our conference. Maybe some people in our conference won't like that, but that's why you have to get on a bill. It's not going to pass by unanimous consent. You have to get on a bill and let the Senate work its will. So vote for cloture. I will add the furloughed workers to that as well. Now, over the weekend, we've had discussions with the staff. The other thing, by the way, they falsely claimed that my bill provided the authority for President Trump to reduce reductions in force. Nothing could be further from the truth. My bill is silent on that. That'll be adjudicated in the courts. So there's nothing in my bill that either increases or decreases the president's ability to manage the federal workforce. So that was a straw dog argument. That was a canard, right? So it's only those 2 differences. I've already accommodated them on the furloughed workers, but we ought to make it permanent. So what I hope Leader Thune does is, again, have a vote to proceed to my bill, say that we already have the substitute amendment, which includes furloughed workers. That was the biggest difference between the 2 bills. Will you take yes for an answer? And I don't, again, I can't get a yes out of Van Hollen right now. I think he's kind of, they're trying to figure out their strategy, which, think about that, it's sick. They're strategizing on how to not be blamed for punishing workers for the Senate's dysfunction.
Your colleague Ruben Gallego went on television, and I want to show you his response because I found this amazing. Take a look at how he responded to being asked about this.
If Republicans shut down the government next time Democrats are in charge to extract whatever it is that they happen to want, are you saying that's okay? Are you saying that's okay if they do that?
I mean, the Republicans have done this quite a while, yes. Yeah,
Republicans have done this a lot. What did you say about it when they did it?
I don't know, and I don't care.
So he says, I don't care. And yet over and over again, he's on the record in previous shutdowns saying in 2013, you can't shut down the government and still claim to be a patriot. In 2019, he said, putting the country in danger. And then 2023, during the last potential shutdown, he said, you put your country before your party. I don't understand how all these guys have said all of these things about previous shutdowns, concern about federal workers, concern about active duty military, and then it's just like no accountability.
Well, you understand that they're hypocrites. And they're hypocrites with the lamestream media, the legacy corporate media in their back pocket that generally, carry their water. So they never get called on their hypocrisy. You don't have, MSNBC or CBS or ABC putting those clips from previous shutdowns where Chuck Schumer says, they'd be completely irresponsible for either Democrat or Republican to shut down the government, and here they're shutting it down. So, yeah, I mean, that is what the huge advantage Democrats have in any of these fights. The majority of the media is on their side, carries their water, amplifies their arguments, and completely ignores the fact that, by the way, I was blamed in some media for blocking the Democrats' attempt to pay federal workers. Because I did go on the floor and tried to cajole the Democrats to vote for the Shutdown Fairness Act, which would pay them, offering to add furloughed workers. But I had to object to the unanimous consent request because it wouldn't pass. President Trump wouldn't sign a bill that would diminish his authority. That just wasn't going to happen. But because they did get their unanimous consent request, I did have to object to their bill so we could get onto my bill. I got blamed in the media for blocking their compassionate attempt to try and pay federal workers when it was my bill that forced the issue.
So we mentioned Van Hollen. You got Fetterman, Warnock, Ossoff. Are you personally aware of, or is Leader Thune aware of, like other senators? There's talk of, Gary Peters of Michigan potentially, or Alyssa Slotkin. I mean, like, where are the other potential votes going to come from to get us to that 60 vote threshold?
Well, it's interesting. We had a bipartisan lunch right after they voted no on the motion to proceed to the Shutdown Fairness Act. And so I was talking to Democrats. I think I talked to enough of them that if I added furloughed workers, made it permanent, a lot of Democrats wanted it permanent as well, they would vote for it unless they're basically told by the leadership not to. So, no, I think there are plenty of Democrats who vote for the Shutdown Fairness Act. I think we'll get all the Republicans again. We got them the last time. Even Rand Paul voted for it. I've had conversation with him that he's not opposed to adding furloughed workers because he recognizes they're going to get paid anyway. So I think we'd be united on the Republican side, which means we literally just need to pick up 3 or 4 more Democrats. And by the way, Angus King and Cortez Mastow, they voted for the CR repeal. They voted against this for some reason.
That was weird.
I'm sure it was because it didn't. Again, they had an excuse because we didn't have furloughed workers in it. I'm going to add that back. So now, what's your excuse?
All right, I want to get to the. I want to get to the ACA piece of this because I think it's important. But let me just ask you a couple quick questions. Strategically, are you okay? Like this weekend, the Senate didn't vote. Okay, I don't know why the leadership, the Senate leadership doesn't just say we're going to jam them every hour on the hour, make them vote over and over and over again. Strategically, are we letting them off the hook a little?
I don't think so. We've already made them vote 12 times. I mean, would it be any different if we made them vote?
No, but I think the idea that they get to go home and hang out and like, my point is make them like that. We're not making them feel the pain of like being here and having to vote over again. They get to go home, hold a rally. I don't know.
It is joint pain, It's so,
right.
I mean, I'm personally not into feudal, so I don't have a problem with making the points, making them vote, week after week after week, a couple times a week. And again, I'm sure we'll be voting again tomorrow or today on the House CR, and I hope we're voting on the Shutdown Fairness Act as well.
You've always been beyond just being a businessman, right? Though you've had strategies about how to highlight these, not just this, a lot of policies that you've highlighted the concern about the federal budget, I mean, this has kind of been what you've really, I think, brought to this body is a businessman's approach about marketing and business. From a marketing perspective, what I see as maybe missing is the public displays. Like, why aren't we having all the House conference out on the steps with military members and saying, you guys aren't paying I mean, like, there doesn't seem to be the same. It's like you take the vote and then the leadership says, oh, well, it failed again. I just wonder, are we highlighting it enough? Are we doing enough to make these folks, shame them for what they're doing to our country and to these members of the military and essential workers?
I mean, you can always argue that, and I'm not sure there's a exactly right answer on that. I think the fact that Democrats are feeling quite a bit of pressure, that Republicans are literally not being attacked in the media, other than kind of the false tax that I blocked their ability to pay. Again, press will continue to do that. Again, if we hold these rallies, do you think the mainstream media is going to cover it? Who will cover it? Maybe if we made them big enough, they would. Again, we can argue the point. I'm not overly disappointed that we haven't done more a job to just force us into the public realm. I think the public's aware of it, but okay. I could be wrong.
There's an option that I keep hearing. I mean, not just keep hearing. It's there, which is what they call the nuclear option, which at some point you say, all right, you only need 50 votes. The Democrats literally campaign on the fact that if they take the majority back, they will get rid of the filibuster and make everything 50 votes. Republicans have this whole institutional traditional piece about where they're like, well, we need to preserve the filibuster. That's fine. But any notion that the Democrats will keep it is nuts. What is the thought process on doing the nuclear option, saying we only need 50 votes now and reopening the government?
We know the filibuster has prevented America from becoming a socialist nation for decades now, because without it, that's where we'd be. So we understand the value of the filibuster. And yeah, we're all concerned about what Democrats will actually do. Maybe a few will come to their senses and not do that, or we win elections and they never get the opportunity to do so. So again, there's a great deal of Republican resistance. Particularly, I wouldn't want to eliminate the filibuster to open up government. I'm not that fond of government. I'm voting for this continuing resolution, not because I like it, not because I like the funding levels, not that I like the fact that they put it up against Thanksgiving, which is sort of the tried and true process for mortgaging our kids' future. So I'm not nuts about this continuing resolution, but I'm even more not nuts about shutting down the government, because it's just stupid and it's costly and it does punish people for our dysfunction. So no, I certainly would not want to eliminate the filibuster to open up government. That'd be like the stupidest thing to do with that nuclear option.
Okay. All right. I like that. I want to get to the ACA, but before I do that, if you sort of looked at a crystal ball, you mentioned Thanksgiving. That's coming up. The SNAP benefits are going to expire on November 1st. If you heard of looking at all of the dimensions that you get to see, how and when do you see this thing ending?
Well, again, I think the public sector union coming out, the big one coming out for the Republican CR, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Democrats. We may see them cave today. I don't know. But even if they do, this CR only takes us till the 21st. Right. This is short term. What happens after that? That's why I will be arguing at lunch when we're going to discuss this. No matter what Democrats do, even if they pass the House CR, we need to be looking ahead, and we ought to bring on the floor the Shutdown Fairness Act so that, again, we are saying as Republicans, we're not going to allow federal workers to be punished because of our dysfunction. I can also see somewhere down the road, because Leader Thune's actually talked about this, okay, well, what's going to occur after this? What happens on November 22nd? We'll probably need another CR. How long is that going to be? I think we've already busted the process of having it expire on Christmas Eve. So my guess would go beyond there, but is it going to go mid-January, March 30th? Leader Thune's talked about how about till the end of the calendar year, 2026, past the election. If that's a serious consideration, I think that's where I can make the case to the appropriators. If you guys don't want to be completely dealt out of the process here, this is the time to embrace the Eliminate Shutdown Act. Not Prevent Shutdown Act, not with those additional kind of poison pills in there that creates pressure to just quest past anything and spend more than we can't afford. But the Eliminate Shutdown Act, the kind of the non-pressure approach that just keeps doing 14-day rolling appropriations until you pass an appropriation bill. It gives the appropriators time to pass the bills where they can find agreement without putting pressure to spend more than we can afford. So that's where you might be able to be dealt into a royal flush, okay, and pass the Eliminate Shutdown Act, because that is the solution. It really is. It's a simple bill. It's really modeled on what Wisconsin did in the 1950s. Just again, fund government at last year's levels, and that's been in place in Wisconsin since mid-50s.
By the way, it's, as you pointed out at the beginning, it's the Biden budget. These guys should be happy about this. There's no massive cuts that Republicans are doing. I do want to move to healthcare because you've got this business background. I want to take advantage of it. So we open the government up. Let's just say that they cry today. They agree. You correctly pointed out Obamacare is flawed, and it's so flawed that the Democrats passed these subsidies to say, gosh, let's cover up how bad it is by subsidizing it. They knew that these subsidies would end. So I don't get what step 2 is, because most Republicans are going to say we're not going to keep subs throwing good money after bad on a broken, flawed Obamacare system. But that also doesn't seem like an easy fix. So what is the next step? Because is it just, hey, we'll temporarily give you guys some subsidies, we'll buy some time to fix it? But it seems to me as though you're literally going to the mechanic and the guy saying your car is broken, I can probably get, if you give me 1,000, I can get you 2 more days, another 1,000, 2 more days. And we keep throwing thousands or trillions at this guy. Like, what do we need to do after we open the government with respect to healthcare?
So I think you were at the podium in 2017 when we took a run at the repeal replace.
Yep.
Now, I was the lone wolf back then saying I didn't like that term. I preferred the term, let's repair the damage done by Obamacare and transition to a system that works. I like that because it described exactly what we need to do. First of all, by saying repair the damage done, well, what damage? Well, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to describe the damage. The first step in solving any problem is admit you have one. Democrats aren't admitting they have one. And again, the mainstream media is carrying their water, so people aren't aware of the significant damage done by Obamacare. So first you have to describe it. And let me just quick describe, it's in 2 areas. It's literally damaged Medicaid. It's bankrupting that system. It's creating less access for disabled children because providers would much rather take care of a healthy adult because they get a 9-to-1 match. They get to charge commercial rates for those adults. Okay, so it's harming traditional Medicaid patients. It's costing us hundreds of billions of dollars in the 9-to-1 scam. Provider fees, provider taxes aren't healthcare. But set that aside. In terms of the other area, it's on the individual market. So prior to Obamacare, there were about 12 million people buying insurance on the individual market because they're in between jobs, they didn't qualify for Medicaid, whatever. But there are all kinds of options. You could have a high catastrophic care plan, pretty cheap. You could have short-term plans. You didn't need to buy this full coverage Obamacare, and you had high-risk pools that spread the risk of covering people with pre-existing conditions with a couple tweaks over everybody. Okay, what Obamacare did is it forced those 12 million people, anybody on those exchanges, to bear the full cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions. It was an unworkable system. As a result, inflation has increased 39%. The CPI has increased 39% since December 2013. I'm preparing a chart right now that is showing premiums have skyrocketed over and above the national average on the individual market for a 50-year-old male, almost 600% in some states. We're doing it state by state. It's varied across the board. But we have seen premiums 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the rate of inflation because of the flawed design. And that's what the reason people aren't screaming about it is the vast majority of people on those exchanges get enormous subsidies. And of course, with the enhanced subsidies, people above the 400% of the poverty line, they got subsidized too. That will go away. And so now those people are screaming, and we got, politicians, saying because the subsidies are going away, premiums are going to double for these people. Well, they're increasing. They're not doubling. They're going up about 30%, but the mask is being taken off.
Yeah.
Those subsidies are going to be no longer going to be available for people who make $120,000 a year and above. I mean, we've got millionaires getting subsidized by Obamacare with those enhanced subsidies. I mean, it's grotesque. And the last point, those enhanced subsidies created zero premium policies. So nobody knows exactly, but I've seen estimates 4, 5, 6 million of the now 24 million. So you had 12 million people before Obamacare. That rose to about 14 million prior to the pandemic. But then with the enhanced subsidies, now we're up to 24 million. But 4, 5, 6 million, they're not real people. They're just policies being sold under somebody's name where the agent gets a commission, the insurance company gets the premium, and the policyholder doesn't even know he has a policy. And so those are no claim policies as well. This is a massive fraud, $20 to $30 billion per year going to insurance companies and their agents on policies people don't even know they had. So anybody who wants to extend these enhanced subsidies is willing to perpetuate that massive fraud.
You can't make this stuff up. You literally can't make it up. The last thing I want to ask you about, because I know that you, aside from all this, have been dogged in your role as an investigator and getting to the bottom of stuff. James Comer and the House Oversight Committee have released this report into President Biden's alleged mental decline, according to them. And it really raises some concerns about the legality of some of the actions he took, pardons, executive orders, whether or not he knew he was doing them. You've got testimony from Jeffrey Zients, his chief of staff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this report. Are you going to pick up this ball or look into some of this aspect of it? What is your role going to be with this newfound information?
So before I answer that, let me go back and finish the first issue about Obamacare. So I described the damage. I mean, the solution is bring back free market competition into healthcare.
Can that be done quickly?
Yeah. I mean, you open up those individual markets, you let people buy whatever kind of insurance they want that states' insurance commissioners provide. You establish things like HSA accounts so more people are paying for the first dollar coverage. You allow high catastrophic plans. Again, it's bringing what works in the rest of our economy, free market competition to guarantee the lowest possible price, best quality, best customer service. With third-party payer systems, we pretty well, removed the benefit of free market competition out of healthcare, education as well. But that's the solution. Rick Scott's working on. I'm working with him. He's an expert on this. So there are plenty of Republican ideas out there. We need a vehicle like a reconciliation bill or something to actually do it. We need the president to embrace it. But to answer your question on the auto pen, I think James Comer's doing a great job on that. That'll be adjudicated in the court. I generally don't like duplicating people's effort. What we are doing is we're bringing in cabinet officials, the constitutional officers that are charged with adhering to the Constitution, including the 25th Amendment, and we are doing transcribed interviews with those people. We'll issue a report so the American public has a record of what cabinet officials saw and what they didn't see, quite honestly, how little time they spent with the President of the United States. We'll get a clear picture of this, hopefully to give future cabinet officials in that situation, which I hope we never have that impaired a president in the future, at least the guidance in terms of they have a responsibility here. We can't allow an impaired president, somebody who's not willing to carry out the official duties, or as Kamala Harris said, couldn't even campaign for reelection. That has to be addressed, and it's up to the vice president and cabinet officials to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Karine Jean-Pierre is out there defending him. And I think the key issue that you touched on is most of these people won't ever admit that they really never saw the guy. So when you're saying that he was doing well or he's fit for office, you have to also say, yeah, but did you ever really see him? And that's the thing that never gets asked in the media.
But by the way, I was in the Rose Garden, and I thought the auto pen photo of was a meme, an internet meme. It's not.
Oh, I know. It's anyway.
So you got Obama, you got Trump, then you got auto pen, then you got Trump. And I just thought that
you know that the second that they get their hands back on that White House, that whole thing's coming down. I mean, there's no way.
Who knows what kind of portrait of Trump they'll have? But
That's right. Senator Johnson, thanks for staying on top of this and always keeping us informed. I appreciate your insight and all your hard work.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet, sir. All right. I love the approach that Ron Johnson brings to the Senate. It's so common sense. And that's what we need more of. And by the way, he put his finger on the problem exactly right. Obamacare created the problem in healthcare. It was supposed to make everything easier and cheaper. And, most Americans, as I've reported to you guys over the last couple of times, we've talked about this, get their insurance through their employer, or maybe they work for the government or a municipality or a state. So they don't really see this. But if you own your own business or are on the exchanges because you're self-employed, you see this. It's insane how much they're charging. And we had a better, you took away the market forces. That was the problem. No one cares anymore about, whether the cost gets driven down. And doctors, how many times have you guys, my wife took my daughter to the dentist the other day and they said, you go submit these forms. We don't do that anymore. More and more doctors, dentists, whatever, are opting out and saying, you go file paperwork. We're not doing this for you. This is all a byproduct of Obamacare. People are saying, we'll get our money and then you go fight it out with your insurance company to see if you get anything. These guys have uprooted the whole thing. And I hope that this government shutdown forces a bigger discussion. This is where I don't think the Democrats, I think they've missed the mark on this. Because Republicans, as much as they thought those costs would be something we'd just throw money at and say, okay, here's the subsidy. I don't know that that's right. I think Republicans are going to say, see how bad the system is that they created. Now we need to fix it. We need to bring the market back into healthcare. Allow people to decide what they need, how much they're willing to pay. I mean, like I said, you're a young 23-year-old. Why wouldn't you get a catastrophic account or an HSA and, keep that with an HSA that you can put your money into and then pay for your first dollar out? The system's so stupid the way it's set up right now, and there are much better solutions. But I want to talk to you about the president's trip, and then, but I want to lead. I said this at the front of the show. I told you guys this story yesterday. Mondami goes out. Obviously Zoran Mondami is the Democratic nominee and frontrunner for mayor of New York. He tells this story the other day about how his aunt after 9/11, couldn't ride the subway because people were, basically attacking her, wearing her hijab, and, all Muslims were being attacked and all this and blah, 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 blah. And I played a bunch of the clips yesterday about him facing total backlash. Rightly so. The victims of 9/11 were in the Twin Towers, the first responders who died since then, not people who faced backlash. I mean, it's not right, but don't call yourself a victim of 9/11. It's just so tone deaf in a city like New York. So anyway, he gets a ton of backlash. Okay, it gets worse, way worse. Why, Sean? Why does it get worse? Because she's not his aunt. Literally, it's not his aunt. It's actually his father's cousin. Okay, well, you say, Sean, I call someone my aunt, and, technically they're not my aunt. It's another, they're a distant family member, but we're close. Okay, if that didn't do it for you, you want me to take it up a notch? She didn't live in New York or wear a hijab. So the story about the aunt who got harassed in New York City post 9/11 for wearing a hijab, A, she's not his aunt, B, she didn't live in New York, and C, she didn't have a hijab. This guy literally made this story up out of whole cloth. You can't, I don't know how you, the people of New York have had the wool over your eye, pulled over your eyes so bad. This is a communist, terrorist sympathizing, bad dude. And he's about to become the mayor of New York. Now, voting is off the chart. And I'll tell you this right now, the polls are not looking great. But here's the problem, and the dirty little secret that I'm going to tell you. That model is impossible to poll. Because when you get to a normal general election, it's Republican versus Democrat, maybe an independent. And the pollsters can go out and data model that. We talk about this all the time with Robert, Cahaley or Jim McLaughlin. You can't model this because you have a far left progressive socialist, Mondami. You got Cuomo, who's still a Democrat, but running as an independent. And then you got Sliwa. The Sliwa factor, I don't know. Does he get 5%? Does he get 13%? Cuomo. Cuomo actually has a shot in this. And I was not saying this up until a few days ago. But this record amount of turnout, I think people woke up one day and said, holy smokes, what's about to happen to New York City? Unbelievable. Meanwhile, as this is all happening, The President of the United States is on this Asian tour getting results. He was in Japan. He talked a little bit about what he's done already, while just landing in Japan. Take a listen.
The historic trade deal with the Prime Minister that is signed today and private sector agreements that were signed moments ago will be increasing our commerce very, very much further. Japan's going to be investing $550 billion into the United States, and it's an amazing thing, and they're happy, and they're gonna love it. It's going to be really good. It's going to be a great for everybody. But building up an allied industrial base, and one of the things that makes me so happy is they'll be taking some of our product. Japan has I don't think I'm saying anything that's very secret. They've been typically slightly closed as a country. It was not easy to come in, but they're taking some of our cars and a lot of our different thing, rice, which is actually a big deal because, as you know, they wouldn't do that. And they're taking corn, and they're taking the Ford 150 right here, the big thing, some of our cars. So it's really a great thing. It's going to be great for them. It's going to be great for everybody.
That's big money. This is going to continue to help our economy. This investment in the U.S. creates jobs. And this is where I think some people are missing the boat. This guy's like constantly, so he landed in Malaysia, getting some deals there. Obviously, South Korea, big meeting of the Southeast Asian countries, but he'll meet on the sidelines with China. That's going to be huge. He did have the chance to get and meet with a lot of sailors. Japan is home to the 7th Fleet. So he went out on the USS George Washington, got to greet sailors. Take a look at this.
You're the greatest, man. You're the greatest. Have a good day. God bless you.
It was awesome. That's him on the flight deck of the USS George Washington. And then he went and spoke to a group of sailors in the hangar bay. It was pretty cool. He took the elevator down, went off on a long speech, brought the Prime Minister up. It was actually really cool. But again, getting back to the deliverables, obviously that's really cool to do with the sailors over there. They loved it, you could tell. But he gets Japan Prosperity Deal. He announced that. He announced the Japan framework for securing the supply of critical minerals and rare earth minerals through mining and U.S. process. Point is, he continues to just notch deals, and these things won't bubble up. But also, one of the side things that's happening ahead of this meeting to China, he did it in Australia, he did it in Malaysia, he's doing it now in Japan. We're thinking about this whole rare earth minerals. How do we decouple ourselves from China? And that's huge. This is so important. And it's like no one's even paying attention to what is actually happening. It's not just trying to get a deal with China on rare earth. It's making sure that we're not dependent on them going forward by striking all these deals with other countries. And it's beautiful the way he's doing it. It's so smart. And I just, maybe I'm the only show that's going to cover this stuff, but it's important to note what we're doing strategically. Anyway, as I mentioned, tomorrow, John Solomon back on the show. And man, does this guy never disappoint. He's always got the inside track as to what's up, who's being prosecuted, what the status is, what the inside take is. And you know this, he's always right. And then obviously great panel discussion on Thursday. Friday, we've got Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire. And today I've got a brand new column out at SeanSpicer.com. Please sign up, take a look, share it with your friends, get them to sign up. It's free, just like this show. That's why I ask you, please subscribe and hit that notification button. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow with John Solomon on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.